When playing the game Raft, one could easily get lost staring out at sea. The endless blue ocean is filled with many wonders left behind by the old world. It is also filled with countless dangers that make survival difficult, but not impossible. Why anyone would want to live in this cruel ocean world is something I didn't understand at first. I myself wouldn't survive purely because of my hatred of the deep ocean. But then I'm reminded of what Raft is all about. It's about remembering what we are fighting for, reclaiming all that is washed away, and rebuilding a future that could honor the old world. The Forward Scouts would set sail, build their rafts, search for broadcasts, and find what remains. Join me in this 11-part series exploring the world of Raft. This is the Rising Waters and Sinking World, the lore and story of Raft, Part 1. Where does the story of Raft begin? It starts with an idea hatched by a shadow organization that would later be known as the Investors. While they will get their own video later in the series, it is important to know who is responsible for the floods. While we don't know what they did to cause the floods, all we know is that they did it for one thing only: money, profit, greed on a planetary scale. What they did seems to be irreversible now, but that could change. Maybe the future of the Raft franchise will have some answers. What would ensue would be a flood of biblical proportions. Slowly, the ocean's waters would rise, flooding the coastal regions first. Population centers like Stockholm, Jakarta, and New York City were likely among the first places to see mass flooding events, bringing about unimaginable loss of life, economic turmoil, and public panic. The Swedish general Olaf Wilkström would be one of the individuals heading the Floating Cities project, which would serve to create shelter from the rising waters. The project was unimaginably costly and put immense pressure on the people of Sweden. There was vocal opposition to the project, but General Olaf would use his influence to try and temper it. Aware of the cost and scale of the floating cities, he insisted that their options were limited. Without them, they would all join Stockholm below the waves. Olaf would be questioned about his personal yacht, which had been rumored to be modified. It would come to no surprise that he was looking for his own way to survive the impending apocalypse. Olaf was one of the investors and knew exactly what was coming. As it would be discovered later, the floating cities were only ever meant for the ultra-rich. The program would be funded by their wealth, ensuring only the most powerful and wealthy would be guaranteed survival. This would ensure some of humanity could survive, but at the cost of the survivors' humanity. There was a problem with these floating cities though, as they had a fatal flaw. They weren't ready. The engines used to power them were not capable of withstanding the strain of moving the cities. But of course, this wasn't a concern for the investors, including General Olaf. There was a solution to the engine problem these floating cities had, but it was lost at sea, or so the investors thought. But that is a topic for another video. With the seas rising rapidly and global tensions rising with them, it was clear that the world was running out of time. Those that could not get a spot on a floating city would have to resort to a makeshift alternative. In Indonesia, the survivors of the Jakarta floods would form raft towns. These free-floating, interconnected communities of rafts and their survivors would follow the currents of the world's oceans. Before it was obvious that there was no other alternative, there was concern from coastal authorities in Indonesia. They were worried this would cause maritime hazards, but this was the lesser of the world's concerns. It still hadn't set in that the world was doomed. During this time, there were rumors of sanctuary cities in the southern hemisphere that could provide shelter. This only helped to grow the tensions across the world. There were many attempts to create sanctuaries for humanity, but it still seemed that many people hesitated to act. It's possible that many people only saw it as fear-mongering, blowing the scale of the floods out of proportion. This might have been what doomed most of the world, not acting fast enough, or at all. Examining the many notes across Raft reveals that there is a relative timeline for the events that took place, as well as timestamps. Several notes tell us that December was a pivotal time where the waters were certainly still rising, but it seemed that the actual floods had started well before. From there, the events of the various locations can be tracked through the new year, all the way through April. Across the world's endless seas, we can witness betrayal among strangers, the effects of power on the mind, the dangers of loneliness, curiosity among youths, violent power struggles, greed sweeping the seas, the remnants of a special secret, and a great beacon of hope over the horizon. Together, they make up the story of Raft. Throughout this series, I will explore and explain the story of these locations and build the timeline of events that followed the rising waters. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like or a comment to let me know you want to see more lore videos for Raft. Also, I've been covering the lore for another survival game called The Long Dark. I'll link some of those videos on the end screen if you are interested. Remember what we are fighting for, Forward Scout. I'll see you at the radio tower.